Welcome to this episode of Beyond 60 Unscripted, where we talk about all things that are important to people 60 years and beyond. We have a great time. And for these next four episodes, I am going to be joined by my good friend, Fawn Lopez, who is the former publisher of Modern Healthcare and has a long publishing career. And she is just a great person who brings great insights, a lot of wisdom, and just she's fun to be around. So I'm looking forward to having you join us over these next four episodes. And I just know that you're going to enjoy Fawn being with us as much as I will. Hi, I'm Ruth Williams-Brinkley.
And I'm Fawn Lopez. We're two friends with a lifetime of stories, wisdom, and just the right amount of sass. Here to have real conversations about what it really means to thrive beyond 60. Today, we'll be diving into the idea of your next season, a topic that's especially important for those contemplating life beyond 60. We're so excited about this conversation, and we know that you will enjoy it too.
Today, we are just beyond excited to welcome a truly incredible guest. Our guest is Leslie Braksick. She is an executive, she's an entrepreneur, she is a CEO coach, board member, and author who has dedicated her career to helping leaders navigate major life and career transitions. As the co founder of MyNextSeason, she works with individuals and companies to ensure transitions aren't just successful, but fulfilling and joyful. Leslie, welcome to Beyond 60 Unscripted. We are just thrilled to have you here today.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with both of you.
We're just delighted. So, Leslie, let's just jump right in. Briefly discuss why this topic is so important at this stage in life.
Well, it's incredibly important because I think we take such great intentionality when we think about our main stage career, and we're thoughtful and how do we want to spend our time and what do we enjoy doing and what are our gifts, and we just are heads down delivering on behalf of our organizations and doing more and fitting more in, and then all of a sudden we pick ourselves up and all of that comes to a close, and we don't really have a plan for what's next. And it could be mathematically as many years after our main career as it was during our career. It's not typically a short period of time. So it's really important to be thoughtful about that. Um,
So, what should people be doing, Leslie, in their 50s and 60s to get ready? What are some of the steps that people should be taking in order to get ready for this next stage of life?
yeah, no, thanks for asking. I think one of the most important things is actually to just pause and be reflective, which sounds like super new agey, and I don't mean it that way, but it's really we are so in it in the groove of whatever our career has us doing, attending meetings, making presentations, seeing patients, taking care of clients, taking
Yes,
care of our
yes,
kids, aging parents. Like we just go where we have to go. But it's rare that we just pause and just say, what is it that brings me joy? What is it about my job that I enjoy the most or that I enjoy the
yeah,
least?
yeah,
And pausing to be reflective on those is so important because you just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you enjoy it. It means that you're good and you're paid perhaps to do it and it's how you spend your time, but it may not be what brings you joy. So first
hmm
and foremost to prepare is really just to pause and be contemplative about really what it is that brings you joy and what do you not like? What are the things you would choose to leave behind if you
yes,
could? Um, so
yes,
so that's really piece one is just sort of pausing. I think secondly is taking the opportunity to deepen relationships. This
mm,
is a time where, again, being intentional about relationships. Who are people that I would like to get to know better? who are people that drain my energy,
Mhm.
that really are more detractors. But oftentimes we have board members in our organizations, we have people we've met in the community, parents of children we know, or friends of friends, and we think, gosh, they're doing interesting things. I would like to get to know them better. The number one thing we hear, Ruth, from clients when they get to this point of transition who hadn't planned early is
Mhm.
that they wish they had used that last decade differently. I wished,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
alma mater asked me to come give a talk. I declined. I was too busy. Now
yes.
I wished I had taken and said yes because it would have broadened my network and exposure. Or I was asked to give a presentation, or I was asked to join a nonprofit board. I declined. I was too busy. Now I wished I had done that because that would have given me access to these people or this
Mhm.
situation or this
Mhm.
notoriety. Or I've
Huh.
been saying no to LinkedIn requests for all these years because they drive me crazy. Now I wish I had a little bit bigger of a footprint on LinkedIn so people would
Yeah,
know about me, so that my thought leadership would be getting read. These are all things we hear from people
yes.
who didn't prepare well.
So
Fawn, you
let's
were
say,
about to say
yeah,
something. Yeah.
you mentioned decades.
Yeah.
Uh, some people had hoped that they had done it earlier, sooner. So,
Yes.
what is the magic time frame um, in your experience and in working with people? What is there a magic time frame, like 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years, 10 years? Um,
I think the ideal, if you have as early as 10 years prior to starting, if you start to just be a little bit more aware of the things that you enjoy and you think of it as a marathon, not a sprint. Now, you can do a sprint in 3 months and get ready. You can do it in 6 months. You can do it in 2 years. I think if you had 10 years to just gently be thoughtful, and why I say that is in that time frame, you're going to conferences, you're going to college reunions, and so as opposed to just using that to keep your aperture this wide, make your aperture this wide. Just
Mhm.
start to meet more people and be thoughtful and inquisitive about what they're doing and what's interesting to you. Because we get ourselves in this rut a little bit. I'm a physician, I'm an executive, I'm a lawyer, I'm a tax person, or no, you're not. You are somebody who's gifted. I mean, yes, you are, but you're so much more.
Yes.
You understand people. You see around corners. You're able to assemble disparate data into information that's useful. You bring calm to anxious situations. You understand people in unique ways. You solve problems faster, quicker than anyone. Those are superpowers that you have that are applicable in so many other places. So there is a sequence we recommend as you're planning, and the first most important thing for concrete planning is to think about, we call them parameters. But where do you want to live? Do you need to have income?
Mhm.
Are there caregiving obligations that you have? Do you have medical needs that necessitate you to be in a certain geography or connected to certain institutions to care for yourself physically? Those are sort of your non-negotiables, right? So don't be afraid to just name those. Like, this is my box. These are the things that need to be in in scope for whatever I do next. So I'm not going to I'm not living in New York City and I'm going to design some future out in California or London when I'm not able to travel or live to those places, right? So
Mhm.
what are my parameters? And then within there, you start to really think about the things that bring you joy, the things that help you find purpose, what the world needs. Where is the overlap between your superpowers and where there's real need in the world? And then who's doing those things, and how can you begin to talk with more of those people and get networked into them? And that's why I like the 10-year horizon or 5-year horizon, because then it can be a non-anxious process.
Yeah. So you touch upon a few real important points, and when you talked about um, get out there and try to uh, connect and get to know people, that process can be so difficult for
Yes.
a lot of people who have not been uh, exposed to that, what would be some tips that you could share that might be helpful? Where would they start? Um, uh, Ruth and I spent a lot of time uh, in the in in the public, doing a lot of public networking,
Mhm.
but a lot of people uh, don't have the opportunities that we do. So that has to be really, really hard for people. So do you have
It is.
suggestions?
I do. I think it's important to start where you are comfortable, friends of the family, and I use
Mhm.
that term in the broadest sense. People that you went to school with, people that you work with, people that live in your neighborhood, your country club. People are often shocked at how excited others are to speak with them, just to
Mhm.
get to know them. And one of the reasons I really love when people start this process early is because you have the air cover to be exploratory and conversational without feeling as vulnerable. So when you've left your job or you've retired and you've lost that primary identity, the thing that gives you such great confidence and,
Mhm.
clarity about who you are and what you are, it's harder because then you feel more vulnerable. Why do you want to talk to me? What are you looking for? As opposed to if you're still in your job and you'd say, let's grab lunch or coffee. I'd like to hear more about what you're doing. Inevitably, everybody loves to talk about themselves. So when you reach out and say, I've always been curious what you do. I've heard private equity for all these years. Tell me, I'd love to learn more about private equity. I'd love to hear more about what you do. Or I saw you receive this award or this recognition. I would love to learn more. Or I read your post on LinkedIn. I thought it was interesting. Could we chat about that, sometime? So it's not about you're not trying to get something, as much as just establish a relationship. So um I call it renewing some muscle memory. When we were younger in our careers, we had to do that. And then we kind of go through our career and that muscle atrophies a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Because we
Yes.
don't need to do it as much. But as we start to think about preparing for what's next, it's just a muscle that we need to gently reinvigorate. And I think that the easiest way to do that is by focusing on the people with whom you're already comfortable. They're in your network, but you may not have a deep relationship with them.
Leslie, I've got your book here. You have written a book about, and it's called Revealing Your Next Season. And I've read through it. And talk a little bit about that because you're not only talking about what you think, you're talking about what you've learned from the research. So, could you tell us a little bit about some of the lessons you've learned from research?
No, thank you, Ruth. We've spent, we're in our 11th year as a company, but this is a space that I found myself in somewhat accidentally. I was doing executive leadership development and succession work, and increasing numbers of people were reaching out saying, "Hey, we haven't talked in a while. I'm finding myself transitioning. What do you think I should do
Mhm,
next?" And I
mhm,
realized I had no one to refer them to who understood the psychology of a busy, successful person. A person who's been all in,
yes,
whether it's been at work or raising your kids or working in the community or leading a nonprofit. When you are heads down working on behalf of a purpose, an organization, a role, you aren't thinking about what's next. And so what we realized is that there really wasn't anything out there that really explored this process. So when we started My Next Season, it was with a very narrow purpose of helping people transition to their first next season. And
mhm,
I use that first next season because it's unlike our careers where we major in accounting and become an accountant, you go to medical school and you become a doctor, you sort of have this die cast. What we find is in your next season, there are multiple next seasons. Some of
mhm,
your making, some not of your making.
mm,
Some of them are because we have a job change. About 15, 20 years ago, organizations started to take over the decision authority on retirement or transitions. So they
Mhm.
started more intentional succession planning. So you might have been thinking, I'm going to be in this role another 3 to 5 years, but they're thinking differently. They have somebody maybe who's ready to be promoted and they don't want to lose that person. So they say, we're just going to move up a little quickly. So it's not 10 years faster, maybe not even 5 years, but it's 2 or 3, and it catches people off guard. So that's a jolt. You've had this incredibly successful career, and all of a sudden you're tapped on the shoulder and you're like, seriously, me? Are you kidding me? I thought, I had more time. So revealing your next season is a blueprint. It's a blueprint, Ruth, to help people be contemplative around what do I do next, and to frame it in a way that puts them in the driver's seat, so they can say, "I there is a we have the formula, we have it figured out," and there's in the appendix of the book is a set of
Mhm.
worksheets they can work through, but more importantly, there's stories and examples in the book, as you saw, so you know that you're not alone. You're not alone, and then there's the lessons learned, and so it really is intended to be a blueprint, but also our arm around your shoulders that reminds you that you're not alone and that your best days are still ahead.
That's so powerful. No, go ahead, Fawn. That is just powerful, Leslie.
Thank you.
And I love the name, My Next Season.
Yes.
I love how you frame the different stages as seasons. Love, love, love it. Now, talked about some lessons learned
Yeah.
from talking about with other individuals. What are some of the fears and that are more common,
Yeah.
and how do people overcome them?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and they are real. I mean, probably the overarching fear we see is identity, loss of identity.
Mhm,
So, who am I if I am not fill in the blank of title? That's how
mhm.
they've defined themselves for such a long period of time, and how they've come to be known in the community, within their family. So, there's a fear of the loss of identity. There's a fear around the loss of community. These are my people, this is who I talk with every day. So there's who are my friends going to be? Who am I going to, spend time with? There's fears around loss of relevance. Is anyone going to care what I think? Anyone going to ask what I think? So just worries about, of not having relevance. There's fears around the loss of structure. Most of us live by our Outlook calendars, who we meet with, who we spend time with, how we spend our time, when we fit certain things in. So just, can I reconstruct that for myself? How do I prioritize my time? Um, there's also a fear of you lose a lot of infrastructure, whether it's admin support, technology help,
For
travel
sure.
You know
planning.
that.
Right.
We experienced that.
I'm living that life right
It's
now.
real. It's so real.
I'm
But
so
it's
proud of myself when I can do something for myself.
I'm terrified most times. I have to
it's a real thing.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and then just fear on impact of relationships, boy, my spouse and I, or my partner, or my kids, or my neighbors, or whomever, are used to a scarcity of me. Do they really want me all the time? So, how do I, what does that relationship shift look like? Those are probably the biggest fears we see, Fawn, from the folks that we work with.
So, share with us a favorite example that you have experienced with some of the individuals that you talk to. What's you mentioned earlier that a lot about you know figure out what you love uh, doing, and so we'd love to hear a favorite, one of your favorite stories.
Well, gosh, there's so many. I think I, th- probably one of my favorite stories is Doug Parker.
Mm.
Doug was the chairman CEO of American Airlines, and Doug was an amazing and highly successful CEO, and he was very sought after. in terms of what he was going to do next in his next season. People wanted him in different executive leadership roles, to go on boards, and he was young. He was in his 50s, and thankfully in very good health, very happily married, kids he loved. So he was really, what do I want to do next? And he's a great example of I, he had a lot of people with the shoulds. Doug, you should do this, you should do that. And so I've actually written an article saying, don't use the S word. There are no shoulds in this next season. It really is very personal to you and what brings you joy. So we have an exercise in our process that is called the What Bugs Me list. So as you're thinking about what you want to do next, is what bugs you in the world? I mean, what keeps you up? What stirs your soul? I mean, when you walk by a homeless person, does that just stir you and upset you? When you think about climate and what's happening around us, is it our failures in our education system? Is it a niece or nephew that isn't thriving, who is capable of more? Is it, I mean, it could be very local and very personal to you. It could be global. Like, what is it that stirs your soul, that really bugs you? That if you were granted three wishes, it would be, without hesitation at the top of your wish list. And he, virtually pounded his fist. But he said, I'll tell you what bugs me. He said, what bugs me is that less than 3% of all pilots in the United States are persons of color. And he said, you don't even need to have a college degree to be a pilot. You need probably about $100,000 to get a pilot's license. You don't need a college degree, but inside of 10 years, you will be a millionaire, because there's a very set progression for professional commercial pilots. But he said if we had more pilots, commercial pilots of color, it would change the economic landscape of our country. And it's available, but people don't know, and they don't know how to access it. And it just, we tried some various attempts when I was chairman CEO. So I said, well, why don't you focus on that? Why don't you do something about that? So we talked further. He wrote a white paper about it, wrote a longer white paper, started talking to people. And 3 years ago, he launched an organization called Breaking Down Barriers. So if you look at breakingdownbarriers.org, he partnered with the Obama Foundation. They came up with some assessments that measured STEM aptitude. And they go into communities and recruit young people who demonstrate STEM aptitude. And they've just, graduated their first classes of commercial pilots. I mean, he will change that percentage in his lifetime. And he went and recruited the woman who was head of pilot training program at United Airlines. She's president of the organization. He and his wife and a retirement gift from American Airlines are the funders for this initial round till he proves out the model and works on scaling it. So people have offered to invest in it. He's not taken it. He says, I really need to prove this out and figure out how to scale it. And he's exploring, the right way to do that. But it's one of my favorite stories, because it wasn't as though Doug started out saying, oh, I want to do a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Or I care about this issue. What he was contemplative.
Yeah.
He really just
Yes.
thought, what is it that I care about? What do I care about? What bugs me? Like, if I could fix it, I would.
Yes.
And so there's lots of ways to get into the space. And that's why, my answer to your first question was to be intentional and contemplative, which sounds light, but it's actually hard work, because you really have to be thoughtful about it. And Doug was, and then he did go on the board of Qantas because he and his wife wanted to travel more to Australia, and Qantas Airlines is headquartered there. So there was intentionality to that particular board beyond just his gifts in the aviation sector. So I I love that for him. And you know what? It's not, I think it is his first next season, but he will continue to do, and it's already led to new opportunities and things that he's exploring. So that's the other thing we see, is that it's like a tree diagram. You go down a branch and then there's new branches, and that go down a branch and there's new branches. Each thing leads to another thing. So anyway, Doug's one of my favorite stories. just because of how he got there and that he didn't start there. And I don't think he thought that's where he was going to focus his time and energy.
And
I love this idea of your first next season. That means that because I'm always someone that likes to be doing 2 or 3 kinds of things, so you don't
Yes,
have to do them all at once. You can
that's
have
right.
this first next season, then your second, and so
That's
forth.
right.
Was that a new concept, Leslie?
Well,
Uh,
it's one of the things we learned in working with our clients that they really needed. That it changed at the 3 to 5 year point. It changed again
mhm,
sometimes. But the
mhm,
thing was, Ruth, and you can relate to this so well, sometimes the changes aren't of our making. We have an
right,
aging parent, we have a loss
right.
of our own health, or there's some other thing that triggers a new season in our life, and the death of a spouse or a child or and sometimes very positive things. Sometimes
Yes,
this amazing opportunity, and it was like, wow, I didn't think I would do that, but that is so exciting. I never imagined it. And so we find ourselves, doing something. I celebrated a milestone birthday recently, and somehow my family remembered my bucket list. And on my bucket
uh,
list, I said I wanted to learn to play the cello. It's my favorite instrument, and I play the violin and string bass and piano, but I've never learned the cello, which is in fact my favorite instrument. So they gave me a cello for my birthday. And it
oh
was
my
so funny
goodness.
because I wouldn't have thought that I had ever actually revealed that inner thought that I want to play. So I didn't recall telling anybody about it. But what's so interesting is this, I'm using myself as an example. If I get any level of proficiency with it, well, that's going to introduce me to new people and
Yes,
opportunities. And then who
yes.
knows, as a child, I played in a symphony orchestra. Maybe that's in my future. But it's sort of it's different. So I sit here today. I own a cello that I don't even know how to hold correctly. But if I focus on it and I get a little bit better, right, it could lead to other possibilities downstream that I'm not even thinking about now. So I think each one of these little micro steps towards something that we're interested in or that we've never had the time to focus on then could
Mhm,
open other doors and
mhm.
lead to other things. And you just don't know where that goes.
I love the concept of micro step, right?
Yes, yes. Isn't that fascinating? That's
And I
fascinating.
just love some of the terms that you use, because you kind of, flipped it, these terms up, to get us to think differently.
Yeah.
No, thank
Um,
you.
so when you talked about sharing the story, you shared the story about Doug and your own. Um, I think that kind of underscores the importance of community, right? So
Yes.
he would not probably have thought through that uh, uh, feeling, right? Had he not talked to you.
Hmm.
And so it goes back to what you said earlier about building a community of support,
Hmm.
networking
Mhm,
so that you
mhm.
have people that you can share your thoughts and feelings with. Am I off base in
No,
saying?
you're spot on. And sometimes it might just be one person, Fawn. It might just be one person with whom you can be vulnerable and honest and have a trusted relationship with. We do it professionally as advisors, but you just need someone who has walked that journey and can at least empathize with why. Because I think if you haven't done it, if you haven't been through it, you don't know why it's so hard. You think, well, you
Mhm.
have all this money or you've had a successful career. Why is this so hard? You solve problems for a living. Why is this so hard? So I think anybody who's been through the transition, a major career transition brings empathy, like so many things, right, in our life, right? If people have walked that particular walk, they are more empathetic and understanding of really how hard it is. So I
Yeah.
think, Vaughn, just having at least one person with whom you can be honest and vulnerable, but who will also be encouraging. I think it's important to ensure that whoever you are supported by is a good listener and doesn't bring their own agenda for you. I think that's one of the hardest things that
Mhm.
we have to
Yeah.
confront is that everyone like so many, we see it with our clients, but they come and they'll say, well, so and so thinks I should do such and such. And I'm like, well, I'm sure they do because they want access to you, or they want, you know, your involvement. You're amazing. Who wouldn't want you to do that with them? But is that what you want to do? And is that fun for you? And so we really try and help people like nixnay on the shoulds, just really just say what I always say. If imagine that you said yes and you wake up the next morning and that's how you're going to spend the day. Are
Mhm.
you glad you said yes? Actually, let's go back to Doug. I mentioned Doug Parker. He said, Les, I'm going to sum up your advice in one sentence. I'm like, really? One sentence? So he said, what you're telling me is, if when I'm thinking about something, if I don't go, hell yes,
I love that.
that I need to say, hell no.
I love it too. And I heard you say fun too. I
Yes.
mean, you wanna do something that's meaningful, but you also wanna have fun, right?
Totally, totally. And if you
Totally,
wake
because
up and you go, "What was I thinking? I don't wanna
yes,
spend
it's
my
a
time
wrong
on that."
decision. Yeah.
It's a wrong decision.
Yes.
So I
So
loved his, like, if you're not all in, a little voice is telling you, "Don't say yes."
I live by that.
I love
because
that.
sometimes you end up feeling stuck and
Yes.
that you're not as effective and it just drags down everything else. So um we're we wish we could talk to you for another 2 hours, but we're running out
Yes,
of time now.
yes.
But so you started talking about advice, offering advice.
Yes.
Would you be kind enough to offer us um, step by step advice on how um, a person can start planning
Yeah.
the next stage of their life?
So I would say the macro steps are are really, there's 4. So if I were to think of like chunking it up, the first thing is to finish well.
Mhm.
Whatever you're doing, finish well.
Yeah.
Because there is a correlation between how that career ends and how your next season begins.
Mhm.
And so plow it to the fence. Make sure your successor's well positioned. Make sure you allow people to celebrate you well, demonstrate joy, even if it's not of your timing. But all the things is really finishing well. Then there's a process of discerning what it is you want to do next. And again, in the back of the book, there's a blueprint for questions to do that. But it's really being very contemplative and intentional about what you want to do next. The third is step, sort of major chunk of work is called rebranding. So one of the things that we underestimate is the importance of redefining for the world who we are and
Mhm.
what our purpose is. So LinkedIn is a perfect place to,
Mhm.
to start or to have yourself out there. But what you don't want to be when you go to a birthday celebration of a friend or the country club or a conference, when they say, so tell me what you're doing now. And you say, well, I used to be the CEO of, or I
Mhm.
used to be, I'm a retired XYZ. No, that's who you were. Who
Yeah.
are you now? Are you a community leader? Are you, I have a portfolio of things. I'm on a couple boards. I advise younger people. I teach a course. I'm a guest lecturer. I am active in my church. I mean, whatever it is, you have to have your talking points for
Mm.
who you are and what you're doing. So that rebranding, so you always want to have a current bio, a current resume, and have your LinkedIn that reflects that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that you have your elevator pitch. Who are you and what are you doing now? And then developing and launching a plan. So you do much like we do anything else in our life. What are our objectives? What is it that I want to achieve in the next year? What is it that I want to achieve? What's my 3-year and 5-year horizon? And then keeping yourself, to making progress against that. It's really, but you don't start with a plan. You really need to start with a contemplation so that you don't find yourself in the same grind that you were trying to escape. Most of us are looking for a little more breathing room than what we had when we were in our careers full on or in our roles, even as a stay-at-home mom or a
Mhm.
community leader. We tend to put 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag routinely. And so a big part of this next season is breathing room.
I think that is so important because we've all worked so hard in
Yeah.
our careers and in our lives, and I've been thinking about that breathing room piece, Leslie, as I'm in this second year
Mhm.
of transition, and I want to have time to have fun. I want to
Yeah.
have time
Amen.
to think about some of the things. Like I was involved in something last week that required me to act out a part, and I found that I really liked that little bit of
Right.
acting, and I thought, "I need to find either an improv class or an acting class." I don't know when I'll do it, it may not be in this season, but maybe in my next season, but it was fun, and
Yes.
so I want to close. I want to close with any last words of wisdom from you. What if you could tell us one thing, one maybe 2, but one thing that you we should keep in mind as we start to transition, what would that one thing be?
My one thing would be to put the words "for now" at the end of any sentence of what you're doing. So or when you're being asked what you're doing, just
Mhm.
just put the words "for now" because
Okay.
it really is about multiple next seasons. So and give yourself the grace to make a change. I always say have 100% of a plan and 100% flexibility to change the plan. So it's good to have a plan, but
Yes.
always be willing to change that plan. If it stops being fun, if it stops being interesting. My husband signed me up for a co-ed. I used to play soccer. He signed me up for a co-ed soccer thing. I was so excited. And it played 10 to 11 o'clock at night on Friday nights. So somebody who works and travels, I thought I'll be able to actually keep that commitment because I'm usually in town by then. So it was indoor soccer. I go to the indoor soccer arena. The women were there just they had to touch the ball, so they had to touch the ball before a man could score. It wasn't co-ed soccer. I don't know what you'd call it, but it was awful. I mean, it was so awful. It wasn't men and women equally playing indoor
Doesn't
soccer.
sound like fun.
No, it was not fun at all. They just wanted the women to touch the ball, but they would get
That is
annoyed if
crazy.
you kept the ball, and
Oh,
I thought, "Get me out of here. This
yeah,
is the worst thing." So sometimes you enter a space and you think, "This is gonna be so fun. I'm gonna reconnect with my past and something I
yeah.
loved." And I get in there and I'm like, "This is awful." And so it's so liberating to say no or
This
to
isn't for
quit.
me. Right.
Yeah. And so try it for now, but
Yes.
be proud of yourself for walking away from the things that just don't burden yourself. Show yourself that grace to try something new, but also exit quickly if it's not the right thing. And just think of it not that you have failed or I've tried 3 things and failed. I don't think I tried indoor soccer and failed. I thought I was empowered to say, this is
Oh,
awful and I don't
yes.
need to spend my time this way. So that idea of sampling and quitting,
Yeah.
early, and so I
It's
like
okay.
it's okay, and I like the for now,
Yes.
and just always evaluate, is it fun? Is it bringing me joy? Is it filling my cup? Because you've earned the right after working so hard for so many years.
Love, 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 love everything
Mm.
you've said. Thank you so much
Oh, thank you,
for
Fawn and Ruth,
sharing
for
your
having
time with
me.
us.
Oh,
And
And
Leslie, I've got your book. But before we go, your book, I'm holding up your book. So let people know, revealing your next ceiling. No, you go, revealing your next season.
mm,
thank you,
thank you.
Leslie.
Thank you.
We
Thank you
appreciate
both.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. This week's silver lining is so important. Here it is. Gratitude is the secret to a joyful life. Take a moment every day to reflect on what makes you smile. It's a simple habit with very powerful results.
And that is today's silver lining. Remember, the best years aren't behind you, they're yours to create.
And just like that, another episode of Beyond 60 Unscripted is in the books. We hope that today's session was something that would keep you inspired, make you empowered, and maybe even a little excited about the possibilities ahead of you.
And a huge thank you to Leslie Braksick for sharing her wisdom and incredible insights with us today. It is always a joy to learn from incredible people. Leslie's book is available on Amazon or MyNextSeason.com.
And of course, a big thank you to all of you, our listeners. We love having you along for this ride.
Be sure to follow or subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. And don't forget to check us out on social media. We want to hear from you, your stories, and your ideas.
And next time, we're going to be diving into living with purpose. And trust me, you don't want to miss that session. It is going to be a great one.
And until then, keep thriving, keep laughing, and remember
The best
years
years
are
are the
the
ones
ones still
still ahead.